Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. Well, in Sydney, rainy, what day is it? Monday evening. I'm a little discombobulated on what day it is because I would normally be in clinic today, but I was not. We've got 100 people on so far. I know we've got a couple hundred more who may be joining us. They might be watching later. So we'll just give a few moments for everybody to jump on. But while we do that, if you can just let me know if a couple of people could type a question in the chat window, just to make sure you can see both myself and Kip Smith, and that you can hear us.
Yeah, make sure you can hear me as well.
Okay, so hi Min, hi Irina. Nicole's struggling with audio on mobile. Okay, maybe that's your reception. Let us know, anybody else, if audio is an issue. You can see 1/8 of me. That's weird. I don't know.
The good 8. The good 8.
Yeah, hopefully it's my best 8. Hi, Annika, you can see and hear. Great. Awesome. Hi, Alistair. Hi, Nicole. Hi, James. Hi, Belinda. They can see and hear us both. That's wonderful. Awesome. Glad to hear. Okay, so for those of you who don't know us, we'll just introduce ourselves a little bit first. I'm just making sure our audio is working. So, was that your phone, Pip?
No, not mine. We got a bit of a delay. I've got a bit of a delay with you, but anyway, we'll roll with it, see how we go.
No worries. All right, so yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Helen Padarin. I'm a naturopath and nutritionist. I've been in clinical practice for 19 years now, which I don't feel old enough to say that, but apparently I am. And yeah, looking forward to sharing with you today quite a few. This is a really rich topic and a really interesting time that we're all going through on many levels here. I'm sure a lot of people have been feeling a whole mix of emotions as the current state of affairs have been playing out, and we'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. But we really want to make sure that you can really get some good practical take-home tips and tricks so that you've got, you know, the knowledge and the tools to be able to keep yourself and your families well through these times and beyond, because it's not just, even though we're in this crisis right now, a resilient immune system is something that is important 100% of the time, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, I'm just really happy to be with you all here tonight. It's, I think, really important that we are making these connections. And you know, a lot of people are in isolation at the moment, but we also need that social aspect. So we're very lucky that we can use technology for those purposes. So I'll let Pip introduce herself to you now.
Yep, hi everyone. So I'm Kip Smith and I'm a naturopath and nutritionist as well. And yeah, I run an organic farm with my husband and my 2 girls. Yeah, running cattle and pigs, so we're out in Young, and I get to work with the awesome Helen Padarin and see patients from my home here via Zoom and online technology, which is amazing, and get loads of connection that way. So this is super cool that I'm at home in Young and Helen is in Sydney, and we get to chat to you all about yeah, what's going on at the moment and see if we can diffuse the situation, but all sort of feel really empowered that there's definitely a lot of things that we can do to kind of ride through this in a really positive way. Yeah.
Absolutely, so important. And it's such a pleasure to be working with Pip, so I'm happy to share Pip with you all as well. So let's start getting stuck into some of the nitty-gritty of it. So the things that we want to talk about today, and this is pretty loose today because, you know, I wasn't planning for this pandemic, basically, and we literally just put this together today. So there's a lot of information that we can share with you to make these uncertain times a little more comforting. So first of all, we'll run through lifestyle factors that are going to influence your immune function. We're also going to be having a look at food and nutrients and how and why they impact immune function, and which foods will be really great for you to focus on including in your diet. And later on, because you've all registered, the great thing is we can email you out a list of foods, for example, to focus on, and we'll look at possibly supplying you with some other resources too as we put them together. So we'll go through that. Then we're also going to go through things like herbs and supplements, which can be useful. And possibly most importantly in that realm, what you have in your kitchen pharmacy and your garden that you could use, because a lot of you may have already experienced, whether it is with dispensaries or health food stores, toilet paper is not the only thing that's running out the door. A lot of immune support supplements are as well. So what are some things that we can do with stuff you've probably already got in your pantry that is going to help with your immune function, to reduce inflammation, to reduce the cytokine storm that happens with infections? I know there's a couple of you who have mentioned your interest in what to do in managing cytokine storms, especially those of you who have autoimmune conditions. So we can go through that as well. And if there's anything that we don't get to go through in enough detail tonight, we can happily look at running maybe a series of these things so that we can go through things in more detail. So that's something we'd love to hear from you in terms of what is actually going to be helpful and whether you'd appreciate that. So I think it's really hard to go anywhere. We don't want to get stuck into details and complexities when we haven't got the bare basics in order. And it's kind of a flip of the coin whether we start with food or sleep, basically. So I guess we'll start with food though, because all the things that happen while we're asleep require the things that we get from our food. So just answered my own little question there. Amazing what talking out loud will do. So if you think about it, you know, there's been a stark lack of information, particularly in mainstream media, about what people can do to support their immune systems when there's a immune or infectious crisis or threats going on. There's a lot of information about sterilizing hands and social isolation and all of this kind of stuff, and that's all well and good, but it's not actually addressing the core issues of what is your state of health. So one thing
Yeah, I was just going to say, and you know, ultimately it's your immune system here that's going to be your best friend, isn't it? So there's a lot of things that we can do to support your immune system and make sure it's in the best health that it can be if it comes across this virus. Yeah.
That's right. And the aim in all of this as well is not to wait until we have a pandemic to go, let's help my immune system. And if that's where you are at the moment, then so be it. That's what a fantastic opportunity to upgrade your knowledge and your resources. So, you know, that's totally great. But in the long run, what you want to do is have your immune system and your general health in a place where you are just generally less susceptible to getting an infection, or if you do get in an infection, that you're more likely to have a quicker and better, smoother recovery with less, if any, complications. So that's what we're aiming for. So in the long term, you just want to be in good nick. And this comes down to, or back to what Louis Pasteur said. I can't remember when he died, quite a long time ago, but he is the guy who was largely responsible for the germ theory, which is generally what we prescribe to today. which says, you know, if you're exposed to a pathogen, you're going to get an infection. But we know that not everybody exposed to a pathogen gets an infection. So what that is telling us is it's not just about the bug, or it's not about the bug, it's about the terrain, it's about the environment that the bug is in. And so what we are working with here is your terrain, your immune system, the condition of your cells, every cell in your body, not just your immune cells. Like, what condition are they in? Do they have the nutrients they need? Do they have waste products in them that they can't get rid of? Are they damaged or oxidized, or are they in really good, vibrant health? And if they're in really good, vibrant health, chances of you taking on an infection are going to be pretty slim. Whereas if you've got a lot of detoxing to do, if you're under a lot of oxidative stress or nervous system stress, then you're going to be more prone to infection. So it's about the terrain, not the bug. So the first thing that I want to run through with you in terms of why does food make a difference to your immune system, I want you to think about the fact that every single cell in your body, every enzyme, every immune complex, every neurotransmitter, every hormone, everything that your body is made out of nutrients, okay? So in order for your cells and your systems to work well, you need to make sure that you're providing your body with those nutrients. So we need to be eating nourishing foods that provide those nutrients, and we also need to avoid foods and habits that deplete those nutrients. Because one thing that a lot of people don't think about, and I didn't think about for many years as well until, you know, I was in this bubble, this field, is that eating crap food and eating food that is devoid of nutrients, like wheat bix, for example, isn't just providing you a lack of nutrients. It's not just providing you a lack of vitamins and minerals because it's such a processed food, but it requires the use of stores of your vitamins and minerals to metabolize and process all those processed carbohydrates. So it uses up B vitamins and zinc and manganese and chromium and stuff like that. It's actually depleting your system of nutrients. So that's why when we're looking at how do we support our immune system, we want to look at not only what foods do we want to put in and what are we wanting to nourish ourselves with, but what do we want to avoid that's actually going to deplete us.
And can I just add there, Helen, some of those foods are actually highly inflammatory as well and going to actually put your immune system in a state of high alert, which is not what we want either. So it's about sort of cutting out the crap, cutting out those artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, and other inflammatory foods, or even for you as a person, there are some foods that are inflammatory to some people and not as much to others. So people have got to listen to their own bodies, but cutting out the things that you know that are inflammatory, and then really focus on those whole foods that, as Helen says, are really nutrient dense. And filling your body full of those nutrients and going for that optimal cellular health, which corresponds to gut health and immune health at the same time.
That's right. So we're not just what we eat, but we're what we eats, and we're what we digest, and we're what we absorb, okay? So this is one example of how a situation like we're in at the moment really highlights the interconnectedness of all systems, all people, all things, like from our health level, from personal, social levels, from business and economic levels. You can see how this pandemic is really putting a highlight on how interconnected literally everything is. And the beautiful thing that I hope comes out of this is people will have time to reflect while they may be self-isolating, to have some downtime and actually ponder these things and reevaluate priorities and values and things like that. So let's have a look then. What are the kinds of foods that we should include? Now, obviously, I said it's not just about what you eat, but it's about your digestion too. So that's possibly a topic for another webinar, because there's only so much that we can get through tonight. But on a most basic level, even if you just take some apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, or digestive bitters in water before meals, that is going to help stimulate your digestion. eat in a relaxed environment, chew your food well, don't drink water with your meals. Follow those things, and that's really going to help your nutrition or your digestion, sorry. So in terms of what foods we wanted to include, some of the key nutrients you really want to make sure you are getting in is vitamin A. So even according to the World Health Organization, that vitamin A is actually one of the most effective antivirals, and it's one of the cheapest as well, which is why it is standard use in developing countries when they're dealing with viral infections. That's their go-to treatment for it, is vitamin A. There's a lot of fear around vitamin A, which is rather unfounded. You know, you do need to be careful with fat-soluble vitamins, because fat-soluble vitamins can accumulate, but the amount you need to take to reach a level of toxicity is quite high, particularly if you're getting those nutrients from foods, and particularly if you're taking them in combination with other fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamin A is, as I said, fantastic antiviral. It's really important for your lungs. So for any lung infection or respiratory infection, it's incredibly important to make sure you've got high vitamin A levels. It helps protect the mucous membrane throughout your body. So your mucous membrane from ears, nose, throat to your gut and your respiratory tract, it's all one piece of tissue actually. And so we want to keep that all in really good nick, and vitamin A is crucial for that. Fortunately enough, vitamin A in foods often comes packaged with vitamin D in hand, because nature is smart like that. It often puts those co-nutrients together because that's how we absorb them. So vitamin D is so crucial for immune function, and you might have seen me post on my Facebook page a couple of days ago one of many articles that are available, research articles on the antiviral state of vitamin D. So a lot of people, I really recommend that you get your vitamin D tested. You can do that through a good nutritionist or naturopath or your GP if they're willing. Some are great, some are a little stubborn, but I would recommend getting your vitamin D checked, which is 25 OHD. And in Australia, anything under 50 is regarded as a deficiency, but in truth, anything under 80 can show signs of immune insufficiency. And ideally, you want to be looking at a bare minimum of 100 nanomoles per litre of vitamin D, 25 OHD. But the ideal range is actually between 130 and 200 nanomoles of vitamin D. If anyone's listening to States, there's a different system, you'd have to do a conversion. Go for it, Pip.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, in clinic, you know, I test people's vitamin D all the time, and I very, very rarely see an adequate vitamin D level. Like, it's very rare, mainly maybe someone from Cairns that I'm working with, but generally it can be really, really low, and people are not even aware of that. So it's a big thing.
And such an irony for us living in the sunny country in Australia here, where we do typically get so much sunshine, but we actually have extraordinarily high rates of vitamin D deficiency and insufficiency, because we've kind of taken too much heed to the whole slip, slop, slap thing, where we're not getting sun exposure on our skin. And obviously these days as well, we're often spending a lot more time inside on computers and computer games and devices and, you know, whatever else. So it is really important to get outside, because sunshine is that primary source of vitamin D.
And there's some great sources of vitamin D as well, isn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll go, I'll just go through these other nutrients, and then we'll go through the foods that contain all these things. So yeah, vitamin A and D, those fat-soluble vitamins in particular are really important, but of course vitamin E plays a big role in immune function too. The B vitamins are very important for white blood cell function and production. And in terms of minerals, zinc would be the #1 most important one. And again, certainly in Australia and New Zealand, our soil levels of zinc are very low, and selenium as well. And both zinc and selenium, so we have high rates of deficiency in Australia because of our low soil levels. And we have very high rates of deficiency in individuals as well. So it's a very rare thing for when Pip and I get people's blood tests done for someone to come back with good zinc levels. Like when it happens, I'm like, wow, you know, high five. That's, that does not happen often. Elbow 5 at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, so zinc and selenium, big players. Iodine as well, because it is crucial for your thyroid hormone, which is very important in immune function as well. So they're the big kind of 4 minerals that I would really look at making sure you're including. Those vitamins, and then essential fatty acids are really important as well, because we use essential fatty acids to make immune cells, and we need essential fatty acids for the cell membranes of all of our cells and the function of those membranes to work properly, so that there's an exchange of nutrients and waste products in and out of the cell as well. Anything else you'd like to add there before we go through a list of foods, Pip?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty well covered the keys without going into herbs. So just looking at nutrients and basic and foods that people can look at, including daily. Yeah. So
I reckon, did I mention vitamin C? I hope I mentioned vitamin C, because obviously
I don't know. That's one of the things there. Yeah.
So obviously a big one, and you might have seen one of the Institute of Orthomolecular Medicine over in China. They have been doing some studies at the moment doing intravenous vitamin C for the treatment of coronavirus with positive outcomes, favorable outcomes. It's still in the research stages. So because it's still in research stages, it's not yet evidence-based medicine, it's experimental medicine, but they're getting great results. So do you want to wait another 7 years before all the studies are finished and they have the evidence base, or do you want to have a look at the research that's going on and go, that's actually getting really good results, let's look into that? So that's your call to make. But they have also shown that 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day does help with prevention. So we'll get to that, I guess, with supplements and jumping ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. But yeah, it does the IV. That's the key with vitamin C in terms of
if you're treating IV, because you want to get those really high doses that you can't tolerate orally. You get disaster pants. You get diarrhea. Okay, so my list of favourite foods, if we look at vitamin C, for example, what we've just been talking about, really the best source is fermented veggies, right? If you look at vitamin C in cabbage, for example, you'll get between 50 and 300 times more vitamin C from fermented cabbage than you will from raw or cooked cabbage. And that happens with all other veggies that you ferment as well. And not only do you get the vitamin C in that, but you also get heaps of enzymes that help with digestion and that are There's a bit of feedback there. Sorry, I don't know where that's coming from.
It's settling down, I think, now.
I don't know why that's happening. Hopefully it stops.
No, good now, I think.
Okay. And then with, where was I? Yeah, so you're getting the vitamin C, you're getting the enzymes, and you're also getting probiotics, which I shouldn't say, some people, I was going to say, unless you've been living under a rock, but you just might not be privy to this information. We now know that the microbiome is one of the biggest players, or the biggest player in our immune system. Now, bear in mind that most of our immune system is actually in the lining of our gut wall, and so 80% or more of it is there. And how our immune system responds to different triggers, like a pathogen, for example, is based on what kind of microbes we have in our gut. So beneficial microbes or probiotics are actually really important for helping to maintain a regulated immune function. So that's fermented veggies. And then my next thing at the top of the list would actually be organic liver. So organic liver is an amazing source of pretty much everything. So vitamin A and D in particular. It's even got vitamin C in it as well. It's got good fats in it. It's got choline in it. It's got heaps of B vitamins in it. It is essentially the perfect human superfood. It's the most nutrient dense food that has the widest range of nutrients at the highest level of anything else. So I'm very happy that I've got some of Gregory Downs Organics liver and meat sausages. That was perfect time. There's easy ways to get liver into your diet. One is to ask your butcher or your friendly farmer like Pip to make sausages for you that do have liver mixed into the mince as well. You can ask your butcher to mince liver and mix it in with mince. That's another easy way to do it. You can also get fresh liver and puree it and then pour it into an ice cube tray, freeze it, and then anytime you're cooking a minced dish, you can just throw a cube or 5 in, depending on the taste levels. Or of course you can do old school pate or lamb's fry, depending on what you or your family members are wanting to eat. But it is an incredible food to include. And in terms of resilience, I don't know another food that makes me feel as resilient as liver does. It's incredible and incredibly
simple. If you really don't like the taste, that you can also freeze it raw for longer than 2 weeks, so that it's been frozen for 2 weeks. Slice it into tiny, tiny little capsule-sized pieces and just swallow it. So that can be done too.
Lots of tips and tricks. So bone broth is the next food on the list. Bone broth is really rich in collagen, which is important for all connective tissue, which you need for your immune system as well. You need for your gut lining, which, as we just spoke about, has a big influence on your immune function. There's good fatty acids in there. There's a lot of minerals in there. So bone broths are really good, and they're nice and warming as well. And having warming and wet dishes when you're dealing with immune stuff is really good. Things that make you sweat are really good, and the things that make your nose run. It's about helping your body expunge, get rid of stuff, right? So bone broths are great. Egg yolks from pasture-raised eggs are really great. Again, they're a big source of vitamin A, D, essential fatty acids, and B vitamins as well. And there's a big difference, as Pip will be able to tell you from the animal front, of the nutritional content of eggs and meat that are raised on pasture versus eggs and meat that are raised on grain and or in barns. Because the animals get their vitamin A and D from being in the sun and eating grass. So if they don't have access to those things, they have those deficiencies, and then when we eat them, we're not getting those nutrients, right?
That's right. And it's always good to find somebody that's got some chickens in their yard, or you can get them yourself. But also check with them what they're feeding their chickens, because even in a lot of the chook pellets or the chook feed, there can even be colours in there and things like that to make the yolks look brighter than what they are. And because a lot of chickens are kept in cages still, even in backyard. So just something to be aware of. But that's what you're after, something that's eating grass and is outside in the sunshine. Yeah, and it's like massively nutrient dense, and you can, your kids love eggs. There's loads of ways to hide eggs, and to get the runny egg yolk, which has got the better source of vitamin A, you can make things like homemade mayonnaise or aioli, or you can even add in a raw egg into a smoothie. They'll never know that it's there, and it's hugely beneficial. Yeah, absolutely.
And just so that you all know, keep the questions coming through. We'll go through them at the end, otherwise we might go down rabbit hole. Right. So in line with what we've just been speaking about there is fats from pasture-raised meats, because these fats are really good sources of vitamin A and D as well. Pasture-raised pork fat in particular is really the best source of vitamin D in that sense. So again, they only have these nutrients in their fat if they're pasture-raised. So always look for grass-fed, grass-finished, so that you know the animals have always been outside on grass.
Yeah. No, yeah, not in.
Sorry, Pip.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that they need to be outside. That's the key. Yeah, outside and on grass. Yeah. So sometimes, you know, they can say they're free range, but they're actually only outside for a short period of time, and then the rest of their lives they're locked up. Yeah. So just again, get to know the farmer and ask the questions. They should have nothing to hide.
Yeah, free range is a very loose term. So be skeptical basically of anything that says free range, and yeah, contact the farm, I'd say. And typically if they're really open and they've got nothing to hide, then they're so happy to share information. And if they sound a bit cagey, then that's usually a good indication that they've got something to hide, so go somewhere else if you can. Next up on the nutrient density list is wild-caught salmon, and this can be fresh, frozen or tinned. In Australia, we can only get it frozen or tinned. There is no salmon from Australia that is wild-caught, basically. Same with New Zealand, I believe. It's a whole different kettle of fish, so to speak. I didn't mean that. It just flowed. So yeah, it really is a different kettle of fish. So looking at farmed fish versus wild fish, and if you have two pieces of that salmon side by side, you know, the farm salmon looks really pale, the skin's really soft and mushy. When it cooks, it's super soft, it doesn't really have any texture. Wild caught salmon is a much darker pink color. It's a much firmer flesh, and when you cook it, it's got more texture to it, and it's really delicious. So the thing that gives it its color is astaxanthin, which is what it gets from eating algae, basically. And that is, or krill, no, they eat algae. And so that, it's in both things anyway. So, that's what makes their skin pink. It's also what makes flamingos' feathers pink, but it's extremely anti-inflammatory. So for those looking at how do I stop, you know, cytokine cascades, it's one of the things that you could use to help manage your inflammatory cytokine levels. Very good source of vitamin D, and wild-caught salmon roe is a great source of vitamin D, fantastic for essential fatty acids. In Australia, I tend to get mine through the Canadian Way, so look up suppliers of the Canadian Way. The Canadian Way website doesn't have an updated list of all of their retailers, so I would contact them to say, you know, where can I get this, or can I order it straight from you? If you're in Sydney, Rough and Bear sells the salmon frozen, and you can buy it from them. There's a cafe in St. Leonard's and Mona Vale, and obviously it's also on their menu. So yeah, it's a great option to have there. Sardines are fantastic for vitamin D and essential fatty acids as well, and they're really economical. You can get fresh or tinned sardines. So they are another fantastic superfood as well, and there's quite a lot of minerals in them too, because you are eating the bones with them. They're really soft, so you don't notice it, but there are a lot of minerals in those bones. Okay. And before we move on to a few other plant foods, the last big nutrient dense animal food that I really want to encourage you to source is some good oysters. So oysters are by far the most amazing source of zinc. There's nothing else that comes close to them. The next thing that is rich in zinc is beef, and then pumpkin seeds basically, but like zinc is up here and beef and pumpkin seeds you can't even see on the graph. Like, there's a huge difference.
So I feed Helen beef, she feeds me oysters.
That's right. Yeah, we do a swap. I go to the farm and get meat, or you do a meat drop here, and I go and get a couple dozen oysters, and we get well.
Lots of zinc.
Yeah, and oysters are also really, really rich in B12 and a lot of other vitamins and minerals too. So they are another superfood to include whenever you can. It's really important to have a rainbow of veggies, focusing on your non-starchy above ground veggies rather than your potato, sweet potato, that kind of thing. So looking at eating the rainbow is really important, because all of those different colors provide us with a huge range of different bioflavonoids and phytonutrients that are anti-inflammatory, help with that cytokine cascade as well. Some of the nutrients like resveratrol and some other polyphenols do exhibit antiviral activity as well. So both directly and indirectly, they help us with fighting infection and recovery from infection, including viral infections in particular. So that's why we do 9v9. Pumpkin seeds, I mentioned, are a great source of zinc from a vegetarian point of view, but again, don't come close to oysters. If I'm having pumpkin seeds, I'll typically grind them up, because that way you digest them better. So they're nice ground up on some coconut yogurt, for example, with blueberries or something like that. And yeah, there's probably quite a few ways that you can get them in. And then Brazil nuts, a couple of Brazil nuts today will provide you with your daily intake of selenium. So, 2 Brazil nuts a day is really great to include in your diet. And that helps out with your thyroid as well as your immune system, your glutathione production, your antioxidant pathways. So glutathione is one of the most important molecules in our body in terms of immune function, antiviral activity, antioxidant activity, anti-inflammatory activity, and detoxification activity. So it's really important that we have heaps of glutathione, and we need selenium for that, right?
I think it's 50 micrograms per Brazil nut, obviously depending on how the Brazil nut was grown and where it was grown and so forth. So yeah, anywhere from like 2 to 4, is good. So maybe a few more if you're unwell.
Yeah. And speaking of thyroid as well, and iodine, foods from the sea are your best source. So getting things like dulse flakes or kelp salt or nori sheets or wakame or things like that. It's great getting seaweeds in your diet to help with that, and seafood as well.
And that works well. Like, I've definitely seen people's iodine levels come up just using that, just using some seaweed, extra seaweed in their diet, or seaweed mixed in with their salt. So it definitely works. Yeah.
That's right. So while we're talking nutrients, let's talk supplements then. So maybe what we'll do is I'll start with what the basics are that we recommend. I can talk you through what I'm taking. Pip might share with you what she's taking or what her family's taking. And then the beautiful thing is that with supplements and herbal medicine, there is a plethora of options available. This is where we really shine, because antiviral medications are few and far between, and they're often very strong with really serious side effects, whereas we have an abundance of herbal medicines that provide incredible immune and antiviral support without the negative or dangerous side effects. So it's really beautiful to be able to access these herbs wherever you can, and depending on where in the world you are, you'll be able to access different varieties of these herbs. And so we'll give you a bit of a list today, but it's by no means a thorough, concise list. There'll be more. But we'll, if we can, if we have the time over the next week or so, we'll put together some resources for you so that you know where to go. And you will get a recording of this video too, and the what do you call it, the words from it. And you'll be able to go through it. You'll get the scripting. Okay. So I personally think the most important supplements to take is the vitamin D3 and K2 spray, cod liver oil, a food-based vitamin C if you can get it for prevention, or liposomal vitamin C if you do have an infection, zinc, and potentially either probiotics or the fermented foods. So if you're not having fermented foods, definitely take some probiotics. And then the key herbs would be things like andrographis and elderberry. So if we look at dosages for vitamin D3, you want to, I would say, at least be having 5,000 IU a day, but ideally you would get your blood test done, because for some people they might need to take 20,000 or 30,000 IU a day for a couple of weeks to get levels up high enough, whereas other people might have great levels and maybe 2,000 or 3,000 IU a day is enough. 5,000 IU a day isn't going to push anybody over the edge, but if your levels are really low, it just might not be enough. And so that's where getting testing is really helpful. You can do that through your practitioner. So as I said, you're aiming for levels of between 130 and 200 nanomoles per litre. Vitamin A is really great to have in the form of cod liver oil, because it does come with a little bit of vitamin D in there, but there's not a lot. But then you've got, like I use a vitamin D3 K2 spray. So if you use the vitamin D3 K2 spray and the cod liver oil, you've got the A, the D and the K all taken care of. So that's beautiful. And during times like this, you know, often I would just say for maintenance, take a teaspoon of cod liver oil a day. But during these kind of times, I would recommend more like a tablespoon a day. Maybe for young kids, a teaspoon might be enough, but if they get any signs of sniffles or infection, I would give them a tablespoon a day for a week or two anyway.
You break that up through the day too, like, so it doesn't need to be all at once. So you could definitely do like little, like teaspoons throughout the day, 4 times a day or something like that, if there were symptoms. But otherwise, yeah, like Helen said, more a maintenance dose. Yeah. Teaspoons.
I remember 2010 when I had a bad flu coming on, or a cold coming on, and I had flown over for a friend's wedding. I was like, I'm not getting sick. So I bought a 200 ml bottle of cod liver oil, and I was just doing shot glasses throughout the day, basically. And I was falling hard, but when I did that picked me back up again, and I would have gone through 90 to 110 mils, 120 mils, a bit over half that bottle. So, you know, in the short term, it's hard to overdo it. I'm not saying you should have that much, but generally speaking, it's pretty safe. So you don't need to worry about doing a tablespoon a day, for example. It's still quite a conservative dose. That's my point of that story.
That works well.
Yeah, if you can get food-based sources of vitamin C, that comes from things like gabinji or kakadu plum, acerola berry, things like that. Camu, that's right. So there's a couple of brands in Australia that do that, certainly plenty of brands in the States that do that. If I do have an infection, I will tend to use the liposomal vitamin C though. That's a nice, fast-acting, effective one. And for an acute infection, if you feel like you've got an infection, you will generally need at least 8 grams a day. So that's 8,000 milligrams for an adult. For a kid, I'd say at least 4 grams a day. The only issue of having too much vitamin C is that you will get diarrhea. But most people need to take 10 grams before that will happen, sometimes a bit more. Yeah.
Some people. Yeah, I was just going to say, some people, you know, can take like 30,000, you know, milligrams before they're going to, like that's their bowel tolerance, but everybody's different. So don't be alarmed if you get some diarrhea, no biggie, and just back it off a bit.
Exactly, and that's actually kind of a standard practice in a way, is to work out what your bowel tolerance is if you do have an acute infection. And then once you've worked that out, so you've taken a big dose, like 10 grams or 15 grams or whatever of vitamin C, and then you get diarrhea, then just drop it down a gram or two, and that's your daily dose, okay? For maintenance, aim to have about 2 grams a day, at least 2 to 4 grams a day. And that, even for kids, 2 grams a day is totally fine. So for zinc, you want a good form of zinc, like picolinate is fantastic, zinc glycinate is good, and some forms of zinc citrate are useful too. So they're kind of the 3 zincs, but glycinate and picolinate tend to be the best absorbed. And you're typically looking at around 30 milligrams a day of zinc.
And that's another thing that I think is really worthwhile getting tested if it hasn't been tested before, because, you know, I see lots of zinc levels that are very low, and 30 milligrams would be nowhere near enough. And zinc's used by so many different, it does so many different jobs in the body that often when you put a bit of zinc in, there's so many other jobs being done that they pinch it. And then there's still not enough available for the immune response or whatever it is at the time that you're targeting, or cellular repair and maintenance, or you know, growth, or reproductive health, and it goes on, and skin. So, and even for detoxification, it's really important. So it's a huge, big.
That's right. Yeah. Especially here when there's so much deficiency, as we said, and it's involved in over 500 enzyme pathways in the body, so it's a heavily dependent on mineral for sure. With probiotics, as I said, getting them in with food. If you're getting it in with a supplement, unless you've done a stool test, which if you've got any chronic immune stuff going on, you do want to get a stool test done, because again, immune regulation starts in the gut with your microbiome. But if you are just taking one for general purposes, you want to get one that has as many strains as possible, not one that's just got 1 or 2 strains. Because the biggest dictator of health of your microbiome is the diversity, so how many different types you have. So that's really important. So that is food. That is supplements. Did you want to add anything else on nutritional supplements, Pip?
I don't think so. Like, obviously with the cod liver oil, you're getting more essential fatty acids and stuff, which is worthwhile. So it's a really good package if you can get hold of some cod liver oil. No, but I think we covered everything. But yeah, don't underestimate. Like, I know that the liposomal C is hard to get hold of at the moment, so you don't panic about that. Definitely those other food sources we mentioned are really beneficial and really useful as well. So yeah, don't underestimate the value of eating good food. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's fundamental, because you can't out supplement a crappy diet, right? So you need to be eating well for supplements to really be of benefit, essentially, right? So focus on getting those foods in first. And as far as what to avoid sugar, avoid alcohol, avoid a lot of starchy carbs, so bread, pasta, all the things that people are stocking up on. Don't do it.
No, and that alone, like, you know, sugar is a massive immune suppressant, and, you know, just by cutting sugar out of your diet is just going to do your body such a massive, massive favor. So, you know, they need to be the focuses to begin with, and then the nourishing food, and then the supplements on top if you've done all those other things and you can get hold of them, or that you've got already a chronic condition and you know you need those supplements, you know, they're there. But you need to do all those other things first and have huge results by just doing that.
Yeah, that's right. Literally, I can't remember the number of hours or days now that sugar suppresses white blood cell function for, but it's really significant, especially if it's something that's coming into the diet regularly. And a lot of people don't realize how regularly sugar actually gets into the diet. So we're talking things like fruit juices as well, obviously lollies and chocolates, breads and pastas, pastries, cakes, sauces. A lot of packaged sauces or baked beans and things like that have added sugar. So really just make sure if you're buying anything in a packet, read the ingredients, make sure the ingredients list is really short and it doesn't have any sugar or additives in there.
And there's some other words for sugar too, isn't there?
Yeah,
in the ingredients.
With OSE is a sugar, so like sucrose, glucose, fructose, dextrose, any of those things that end with OSE, you're wanting to avoid, basically. That means sugar.
Yeah.
So we've got two more things we want to go through today. One is some herbs that are really useful, and the other, it's last but not least, is the lifestyle factors. So please hang around, make sure you do watch that because they are so powerful and so crucial. And again, just like food, you cannot out supplement these lifestyle factors. They're laws of nature. So we can't override them. So let's run through some herbs though, since we're on this supplement roll, right? So if we look at herbs that have literally been shown to be effective against different types of coronaviruses, not necessarily COVID-19, so we're not saying these herbs treat COVID, but they have been shown, because there are lots of different types of coronaviruses, right? We've seen them in the past with SARS and MERS and all that kind of thing. And as a result, there's been some study done on them. But so some of the big ones are andrographis, elderberry, thuya, thyme, licorice root, echinacea, baikal skullcap, and lemon balm. Incidentally, baikal skullcap is one of my favorite go-to herbs for easing that cytokine storm as well. And then there's other herbs that have been shown to be great general antivirals, like cat's claw, for example. One herb that I didn't mention on that previous list is wormwood. That's really effective. Not only is that anti-parasitic, but an antiviral against coronaviruses. And then we also want to look at what are good herbs for the respiratory symptoms that people are getting. And in particular, you know, one of the big problematic areas of contracting any virus really, but particularly these coronaviruses, is the secondary infections that can happen in the lungs, sometimes by bacteria. So we really want to be supporting lung function, and that damage that happens in the lungs tends to be from the cytokine storm we've been talking about. So herbs that help to, herbs and nutrients really, that help to prevent that or decrease that cytokine storm. As I said, baikal skullcap, ginger, turmeric, green tea, sage, just trying to recall them all off the top of my head, cordyceps. There's like a huge long list of them. So there's lots that you can use. If you do have an autoimmune condition, maybe it's worth, in particular, having a look at including some of those herbs. Nutrient-wise, quercetin, so bioflavonoid that's closely related to vitamin C, is very powerful for halting that storm. Resveratrol, vitamin C itself, and they're the only ones that are coming to me right now. Vitamin D actually is really important for minimizing that cytokine storm as well. And then lung herbs, beautiful herbs for the lungs include ginger, turmeric, hyssop, licorice root, pleurisy root, marshmallow root, things like that. Mullein, elecampane, any others that you want to add to that little milieu?
Rosemary, well, potentially. And yeah, and I was just going to say that for people that aren't familiar necessarily with the cytokine storm that's going on, and a lot of these herbs are about regulating the immune system. So some the immune cells need to be upregulated sometimes, but also sometimes downregulated. And so a lot of these herbs actually will help calm the immune response and regulate the immune response so it can be adequate and appropriate and not too over the top that it's causing heaps of problems, but adequate enough to get rid of the virus of infection. Yeah?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And a lot of herbs that are really good for that cytokine storm are things that you'll often find in your kitchen. So I mentioned turmeric and ginger. Black pepper is also one, and licorice root is one. So maybe not everyone has licorice root, but a lot of people will have turmeric, ginger, and black pepper. So you could literally put those, slice up ginger root, slice up turmeric root, put a handful of peppercorns in a pot, fill it up with filtered water, and then simmer it for anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours. And as time goes, like it'll be fine to drink after, probably even 15 minutes to be fair. But the longer you leave it to simmer, the stronger it gets, and you'll end up getting this beautiful dark liquid that's really warming to drink. It really helps to clear your airways, your sinus passages. I think it tastes pretty good. You can put a squeeze of lemon in there too if you want. And if you do have licorice root, that will sweeten it as well if you prefer it a little bit sweet. So yeah, that's something that you could do now on a daily basis. Have 1 to 4 cups of that a day, and that will help with your fluid intake too, which is probably a nice segue into lifestyle.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, water could be in diet, but anyway, in my head it's in lifestyle.
Both. Yeah, lifestyle. Lifestyle is enormously important. In fact, it's probably like the foundation and the basis, because if you're like, stress is one of the biggest kind of players here that can upset the regulation of your immune system. It can upset the way that you're digesting and absorbing your nutrients. And it wreaks havoc with your thyroid and that whole HPA axis. So being happy, staying calm, and in a situation like this, and there's so much on the news, and there's so much negativity and so much talk and so much panic a little bit that's in the air, we need to then stand strong and tall and actually create calm, and take the time to breathe, slow down, make some time to cook and make some time to play some good music at home, play with your family, play a board game, and this will kind of have a ripple effect in your household and the people that you're interacting with as well. And then everyone starts to calm down, and you can think more clearly. And you actually, if we are going to have to work from home, well, that's kind of a beautiful time to be able to slow down and spend some quality time with your family and have some spare time. You won't be commuting, and maybe you can plant a veggie garden and spend some time outside and go for a walk and watch the sunrise and do all those things that is going to help calm your whole system down.
Yeah, that's what I'm quite excited to see, what unfolds from this experience and this kind of imposed downtime, because it's happening around the world, right? And I mean, you look at things that have been happening in Italy, and neighborhoods have been out on their balcony playing music and singing to one another and like really connecting in meaningful ways that are really nourishing to our souls. And I just think this is quite an interesting opportunity for us to have more of that downtime, quiet time to reflect, time to read books, time to, write love letters, time to play board games, all of those kinds of things. And I would really encourage you all have time outside, because sunshine, fresh air and dirt are all incredibly important for our immune function. We know that outdoor air is actually antimicrobial. We know that patients with infections who have open windows at the very least, but ideally spend time outside and in sun if there is sun. It's been pouring all day here in Sydney. But
funny.
I know, I saw it on our video call before. But yeah, if you can, you know, sunshine and fresh air are incredibly important in terms of antimicrobial action, as well as for the soul. So definitely do that. If you can get in clean dirt that isn't full of glyphosate, then get your hands in dirt as well, because dirt is full of probiotics. You know, when you pull a weed out or something and you get that little puff and you smell that earthy smell, that's you breathing in probiotics, right? They start inoculating your mucous membranes in your nose and your respiratory tracts, and they travel throughout your body. So spending time in soil is actually really beneficial for your immune system. So get in your garden. Sorry?
Yeah, so perfect to plant a garden, even if it's just in some pots. So it doesn't have to be a massive garden. But yeah,
I think you were getting some supplies today too, weren't you, Pip? And we're doing that here too. We're starting to get some organic potting mix and some seeds and planting some seeds and seedlings so that there's some, A, there's food supply, B, you're outside, C, you're in the dirt. Like it ticks all, and you're in fresh air, it ticks all of the boxes. So do things like that. But play and laugh, like laughter is really important for your immune system. So, you know, tell jokes, share funny stories, get together, play funny games, be silly, don't take life too seriously. I mean, yesterday I was feeling stress build up myself, and I was feeling pretty kind of crap last night, to be honest, just feeling a bit flat. And so I was like, right, I need to change my state this morning, and I really felt like I needed to shift it in my body because I had been doing a lot of sitting down, too much time at the computer, trying to work things out. It's really tricky at the moment, finding that balance between keeping informed but not getting sucked down the vortex of what's going on in the world. And so I knew I needed to breathe, and I knew I needed to move. Now, breathing, I want to touch on quickly. I know we're running over time, but this is really important information. Our lungs are one of our 5 organs of elimination. Our skin is our largest organ of elimination, but our lungs actually have the highest capacity for eliminating. We actually eliminate, you know, a good 70% of our bodily waste through our breath, believe it or not. It's quite incredible. And so doing breath work is very important, because one thing that we haven't touched on here, there's so many things we could talk about, but one of the things that makes us more susceptible to infection is being toxic, basically, or needing to detox. It comes down to that story we were talking about before, it's about the terrain. So the cleaner your cells are, the more resilient they are. And so doing things like breath work can really help with that. So this morning I just got onto YouTube. I put my phone on to do not disturb so I wouldn't see messages and things come through, because I didn't want to deal with anything in the outside world until I'd taken care of myself first this morning. But I got onto YouTube. There was a 10-minute guided breathing session of Wim Hof. So I did that lying in bed. Then I got up and had a shower, and then I put on some music. I was going to do what I call a burn meditation, which can go for basically one song or a whole hour, as long as you want, with music, and just moving your body in a way where you're expressing your feelings physically, because otherwise we hold on to them, and that causes stress and tension. But what that just ended up being for me today was like a 20-minute dance party in my lounge room. So I was there, like, I should have recorded it. I can't dance. Well, I need to change that script. Exactly. I'm not a professional dancer.
I've seen you dance.
I was having a great dance party for one in my lounge room today, and it felt freaking fantastic. And I just tried to, without thinking about it too much, because I didn't want to get in my head, but I just was exploring with my body what are different ways that I can move that's outside of normal ways that I would move. So I really encourage you to try that out. And then at the end of it, I did that a few minutes of Kundalini breathing, which if you saw my Insta stories, you would have seen me. I thought, oh, this is a bit embarrassing, but I thought, screw it, we're all in this together, so I'm going to show it anyway. And I did, you know, breathing, which is amazing. It's like billows, right? And it bellows, billows. It's great for getting all that stale air out of your lungs. It pumps all of your lymph nodes under your arms. It gets your circulation going. And after that, I felt great. So it shifted so much of that just weight and heaviness. So it's really important that you're taking time for that self-care for you every day in some form or others. Some days it might be 5 minutes, but if you have the opportunity to spend an hour or 2 hours or however long you have to really nourish yourself and calm your own farm, right? We're all responsible for how we bring ourselves into the world, and that affects everybody else because we are electrical beings. So even if we're all like namaste and om, other people's energy still affects ours. And so if everybody's in this kind of state of panic, it makes it harder. Like, I'm normally, one of the most common bits of feedback I get from people is, you're so calm, you know, I feel so calm around you. And normally I am, but I could feel that being challenged yesterday, like hearing the blender in the cafe I go to all the time, which I normally don't even notice the blender. Yesterday I was like, oh my God, that blender, you know? So it was a sign for me that, okay, I really need to do something to take care of myself. So that's why I spent about an hour with myself this morning, just getting myself centered and grounded again. And on that topic, yeah.
One more. Sorry, I was just going to add one thing that I think needs to be touched on too, is that people need to give themselves permission to rest. So definitely, you know, show up in the morning like that. But I think especially with colds and flus, there's take a cold and flu tablet and push on, and everyone's expected to power on and go to work and get through and do everything you have to do with the family and keep going. And that's exactly what we shouldn't be doing. Okay, what we should be doing is resting and taking time off. And it's a good prophylaxis as well, like to build that in. So allow yourself time to rest, allow your family time to rest too. Read a book. Slow down, don't worry if things aren't done. Now's the time to rest, and that way if there is some exposure, you know, your body's really equipped to deal with that. And I think that's culturally something that we all find really difficult to do, particularly as women. And I think that now's the time to get over that and do make some time to rest during the day and get to bed early and make sleep a priority.
Yeah, well said. Hashtag get over it. And my, that whole soldier on thing is one of my least favorite terms and advertising slogans in history. It's just the absolute opposite of what's needed. One more thing in respect to, we are electrical beings. This is very true. That's why it's very important for us to drink a lot of good quality clean water so that our electrolytes can do their thing and our cells can function and our nervous system and our heart can function and our immune system and everything else can function. So that's very important. So the ideal amount of water to be drinking is 33 mils per kilo of body weight. Oh, and Scott from Waters Co. Called me today when we posted this, and he said he'd give away 2 water filters, new water filters they've got. So we'll go through and just randomly pick 2 people from the list of people who have registered for this, and you'll have a water coming your way. So thank you, Scott. But yeah, good quality water is hugely important. And it's also important to spend time off technology, okay? So at night, please turn your Wi-Fi off, turn your phone off, put it onto flight mode at the very least. Try and turn as many electrical devices off as you can, because that does affect the quality of your sleep. And your sleep is when you are making your immune cells. That's when you're building your white blood cells. And if it's being interfered with all this electrical pollution that we have going on, you're not going to function so well. And we watched a very interesting video from Dr. Tom Cowan the other day, who was talking about every viral pandemic in the last 100 or 150 years has been within 6 months of major electromagnetic developments in the world. So 1918 with the Spanish flu being the first one where there was some kind of, do you remember what it was?
Like some form of radio wave that was introduced, like in a very basic form, but that at the time was significant because it hadn't been experienced before. And then there's been layers, another one in 1968 where there was satellites put up, and now the most recent one is
as well in 2009. There was more satellites put into around the earth, and then this one 5G, and the place that started was Wuhan City, where that's the world's first fully 5G enabled city, and the biggest hotspot in the States was Kirkland's, which is the first 5G enabled city in the States as well. I don't have all the information and the science on that, so I'm not saying it totally is or it totally isn't. It makes sense to me. I'm curious about it, and I think that's the most important thing, rather than forming strong opinions, is to remain curious, but certainly do what you can at home to minimize your exposures. So when you're not using the Wi-Fi, turn it off day or night, and spend time off your screens and with people and books and dirt and nature.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
Well, we have gazillions of questions, but we're running really late. So what we might do is I'll read through them later. And if there's any questions that weren't by chance answered in our chat already, because I know there are a couple that I have seen that were or that have been answered just by chance, we can always look at organising another one. So please, if you could email maybe clinic, I hope this is okay, Mel, to email clinic@helenpadarin.com. So that's CLINIC @helenpadarin.com. If you have any requests for if you would like more of these webinars, if there are any particular questions or topics you would like us to cover, we can look at doing that and potentially look at doing them in a shorter time frame, so it's not going on for more than an hour and taking up too much of your time. But this is a very important and timely topic, so I do hope you've got a lot of helpful information. Pip is taking on, if you want some just acute immune advice, not to go into anything else, we've set up an option for you to be able to do 20-minute consults, 15, 20-minute consults. You can book that through helenpadarin.com. That's if you want to find out exactly what supplements would be appropriate for you and what dosages, because, you know, men, women, children, adults, any existing, pre-existing conditions, medication, supplement interactions, things like that. Then Pip can review that for you, and that is literally just to go over that. If you've got any chronic conditions or longer term goals you want to work with either of us, then that's fine, but that requires a full consult to go through all of that stuff. But we know that some people really want some quick support immune-wise at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. And potentially looking at ordering some blood tests if we think that that would be beneficial, if you need that, an option. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Pip, and thank you, Mel and Shelley, who helped us set this up today, very last moment. And thank you all for taking part in our ad lib spontaneous webinar. And as I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Go and have some fun, play and laugh. Fresh air, sunshine, they're the key things. Sleep. And yeah, look forward to hearing any feedback. Please send feedback to clinic@helenpadarin.com, and we will be more than happy to take that into account with what we can serve you with in the future. So thank you all and good night.
Good night. Bye.
I just have to figure out how to end the webinar. It's a little awkward moment. Hi everybody, you can just hang out with me. How do I do stop webinar?
I think you just, if you look, just click where you started, it should give you the option to end or leave.
Yeah, that's not there. Recording. I'll stop recording it.